Okay, today's daf is Shabbat daf Yud Gimel. We actually have a lot of sponsors for today's daf. Today's daf is sponsored by Carolyn Benger in memory of her father Bernard Benger, Dov Ben Tzvi Zichrono Livracha, by Rina Septi Goldstein and Mark Goldstein in memory of Mo Septi, Moshe Ben Elazar Shmuel Zichrono Livracha, by Irene Schweitzer in memory of her grandmother Chasya Bat Rachel, and by Sharona Zichrono Livracha, and by Sharona and Binyamin Aronoff in memory of their grandmother Mali Chidekel, Esther Malka Bat Ze'ev Wolf, Zichrona Livracha, who inspired them with her dedication to Limud Torah. And again, to all of the people who are sick, Refuah Shlema to them. Okay, today we're starting at the bottom of Yud Gimel of Yud Bet Amubet, Be'emet Amru Chazan. Okay, so we have this section which is a little bit strange about the Chazan, okay, who seems to be someone who kind of works in the shul and also is teaching the children. So it says here in the Mishnah, I'll just go back to the Mishnah on Yud Aleph Amud Aleph for a minute. It said, Be'emet Amru, okay, just to remind you where we are, we're in the middle of a Mishnah that had all sorts of things that one should not do lest something might happen, right? Someone might move the candle and start playing with the oil, and someone might walk out with their, the tailor with his needles, and he might accidentally forget on Shabbat and walk out also on Shabbat, therefore he can't do it before Shabbat. So one of the things listed was the Chazan ro'eh hechana tinokot kol'in. He can look, so he seems to be a Chazan of the shul, but also he's teaching the children. He's also the teacher, and he can see, which by the way, in the book Mishnat Eretz Yisrael of Safrai, he talks about this, how this shows you how things worked in those days, that you can see that the person who was in the shul was also the teacher, and he was doing both. And not only that, but they were learning on Shabbat, right? The kind of school was happening on Shabbat. So he could see Hechana Tinakot Korin, because this is clearly happening on Friday night. That's why we're worried about the candle. Aval Hulo Yikra. So he can see where they're reading from, but he himself can't read. Okay, so now going back to our Gemara, it says at the bottom of the daf, V'hamar Reisha Ro'eh. It says he can see where they're reading. My lav likra. Doesn't that mean that he can actually read? So they say, lo, l'sader parshiotav. No, what he's really doing is he's trying to figure, now this is a little bit complicated what exactly this means, but it sounds like somehow he's trying to figure out where the beginning of the sections are. And Rashi connects this, as we mentioned in the Mishnah, with somehow figuring out what the aliyot were that Shabbat. And the kids somehow seem to know, and he's kind of checking with their stuff, although it could be that it means something a little bit different. We'll talk about it at the end. I'll give some suggestions that Safrai mentioned that to me made a lot of sense here. So if you don't totally understand, I think the whole section isn't so comprehensible. I'll make sense out of it when we get there in a few minutes. Okay, so then Rabbi Shmuel says the same thing as we answered a minute ago. That's what he's doing. He's figuring out the beginning of the sections. Okay, so now the Gemara is going to ask, V'kula parshalo, what he can't read, he can't look through the whole section. Meitive, it says in the following source, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, Hatinokot shel Beit Rabban hayu mesadrim parshiyot v'korin le'or haner. You see here that the children were allowed to both be mesader parshiyot, which again, we're not exactly clear what this is, and they would read le'or haner. So they can read. It's not only siddur parshiyot that's allowed, it's also reading. So there's a few different answers. Ibait ema rashe parshiotav. Either it means that they were only reading, when it says they could be korin or haner, it meant that they could read the beginning of the parshiot. V'ibait ema, or alternatively, shani tinokoto il ve'emat rabban alehen lo ati litzluye. And this is the important line, I think, which can help us understand a little better what's going on here. We're distinguishing in the Braita that we quoted with Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel, he was talking only about the children. The children can read, and they can be Mesader Parshiyot, but the Chazan is not allowed to. He can only be Mesader Parshiyot. So why is there a distinction between them? So they say in the Gemara that the children are scared of their rabbi, and because of that, they'll make sure, not their rabbi, their teacher, they'll make sure not to move the candle, to play with it if it starts going out. So now the question becomes, what exactly is going on here? Why is it okay for them? Why not okay for him? So Safrai suggested that possibly this connects with something we saw earlier, which is if we saw if two people are reading and they're sharing the candle, then each one kind of is accountable to the other. And what's going on here is all these children are reading from the same candle. And because they're reading from the same candle, we're not worried that Shema Yateh, that they're going to start playing with the candle if it starts going out, because each one will remind the other. And in addition, as the Gemara ended with, they're scared of their teacher, who is obviously going to make sure. But what's interesting about the teacher himself, this is a good example of, we're very good when a lot of times we're very good at worrying about other people, but we're not always so good about worrying about ourselves. He's very conscious of his students and taking care of them and making sure that they don't move the candle. But he himself might end up, right, if he starts reading and he can't see, he might end up doing it himself. And that's why we say in the end, we distinguish between him and the students. Okay, moving on. Kayotze bo lo yochal hazav. Now we have this section about the zav and the zava don't eat together, mishum hergel avera. So now we're going to have to figure out what exactly is going on here. It's not even clear. I'll already suggest that hergel avera is one of two things. One is, often in this context we think about, when we talk certainly about a nida, we're worried that the woman might sleep with her husband, and the Gemara definitely starts going in that direction down the road. But it's not so clear that they're talking about is that they might end up having intercourse together. The concern might be here that we're simply worried if they eat at the same table, that one person is going to make the other person impure. Now we're going to see, why is the Mishnah talking about the zav and the zava? They're both impure, so what are we concerned about? And you have to remember that in those days, particularly the prushim, which were the regular, right, as opposed to the other groups that existed, the stukim, the prushim were very careful about tumah and tahara in general, not like we are. And they would make sure to eat all their food as if it was truma. And they had to keep it, right, it's called chulin al taharat HaKodesh. So the meal was very important because that's when they were touching the food. So now we're going to, with that background, let's go into the Gemara. Tanya. So the Gemara starts off with the Braita. Rabbi Shimon ben Elazar Omer, Bo'u re'eh ad hecham partzat tahara b'Yisrael. Look how careful people were with tum'ah and tahara in general. Shelo shaninu lo yochal hatahor himatme'ah. In other words, what would we have expected? We would have expected that the Gemara says the pure person shouldn't eat with the impure person because maybe he'll become impure, right? Maybe the other person will touch him and create tumah. His food will become tameh, right? Because it was very easy, no matter what level of tumah you have, you can transfer tumah to food. So it could be, well, he'll mess up his food. So therefore, it doesn't say, lo yochal hatachor himatme'ah, ela lo yochal hazavim hazava mipnei hergel avera. So the issue is that we're concerned that a zav and a zava we don't allow to eat together because maybe they'll come to eat together with the then a tahor and a tameh will come to eat together. But nobody says a tahor and a tameh can't eat together because obviously nobody was doing that. That was clear. People were very careful about that, so there was no reason for the Mishnah to even say it. So now we're going to say kayotzebo. In addition, lo yochal zav parushim zav ama'ametz. If you have a zav who's a prushi, who's careful about purity and impurity, he can't eat with a zav who's not careful about these things. Amei haaretz were known to not be careful about a zav, about tum'ah and tahara, purity and impurity. Shema yargilenu etzlo, because maybe he'll cause him something. We're going to have to see exactly what this is. Yargilenu from the lashon of regil. He'll be regularly with him. So now they say, who cares if they're regularly together? If the zav, even if he's a prushi zav, he's eating everything he eats. When he touches his food, it becomes impure. So we can't possibly be worried that he's going to create, that the Am Haaretz is going to make his food impure because he himself is already impure. So any food he touches is going to be impure. So what on earth could be our concern with having the zav prushi eat with the zav Am Haaretz? So ela ema, what are they? So b'chim argilo etzlo ma'havi. What's the difference? Ela ema shema yachilenu dvarim tmeim. Maybe we're worried, right? That he's. Oh, sorry. This was already the answer. The answer is maybe he'll feed him tamei food. To which the Gemara says, "Atu zav parush lav darim tmeim achil." But isn't he himself eating tamei food? So Amar Abaye gzera shema yachilenu dvarim she'inam metukanim. Amei haaretz were known for a few things. One of the things is that they often ate impure foods, right? They weren't careful about tumah and tahara. But another thing is they didn't always take trumot and maschot. So we're worried that if they eat together, what's going to be the problem? They're going to end up, right? The zav is going to end up eating food that trumot and maschot weren't taken from. But now we're going to learn that there was a difference in level between Amei Aretz never ate, they were never careful about Truma and Tara. That was known. But Truma and Masrot, so. A lot of them really were careful about Truma and Masrot, and all the laws we have about Amei Aretz and Truma and Masrot are more, we're a little bit worried about the few people that don't keep Truma and Masrot. Like, for example, if you buy fruits and vegetables from them, you have to take Truma and Masrot because you have to be concerned that maybe they didn't take. They're actually careful about Truma, Gedola, what they give to the Kohen, but they're not really careful about the rest of the stuff. So the Gemara says, so if we're worried, so now they say it must be we're worried that he's going to eat in foods that he didn't take Truma and Masrot from. But Rava doesn't like Abaye's answer. Rava amar rova mei haaretz maslimhem. And maybe it was a difference of approach. Maybe Abaye thought, right, it's a matter of nobody really knows how much everybody's doing Truma and Masrot. Abaye thought most of them aren't. And Rava said, what do you mean? Rova mei haaretz do keep Truma and Masrot. And therefore, what's the concern? Ella, so in other words, we started with maybe the concern is he's going to make his food impure. We said that can't be an issue because the Zav eats impure food. So then we said maybe it's that they're eating, that they're not taking Truma and Masrot. But Rava says, no, most of them are. And if most of them are, then we're not going to start making a gzera on a gzera, right? That maybe don't eat with him because maybe you'll come to, maybe he didn't take Truma and Masrot. It's already a gzera, like gzera. So that can't be the reason. So what does Rava say? Shema yehei ragil etzlo v'yachilenu dvarim tmeim b'yemei taharato. We're worried if you eat dinner today and you're both Zavim, but next week you're not going to be Zavim, you might end up eating dinner again next week with him. And next week, he's going to cause your food to be impure because he's not careful about purity and impurity. And that's the concern. And this goes, and this we're going to get to actually soon about cooking, about bishul akum and things like that, where there was always a concern if you start eating with people, you'll become friendlier with them, you'll end up hanging out with them more, and then this won't be just a one-time thing, but it'll continue, and that's what we're worried about, that when you're not a zav, we don't want you eating with him because he'll make your food impure. Okay, this is obviously all irrelevant in the day where we don't keep purity and impurity. Okay, ibayelahu. Now we get to a very relevant question. Nida ma'u shetishanim ba'ala. Can she sleep with her husband in bed? He bibigda v'hu bibigdo. She in her clothes and he in his clothes. Okay, so are they allowed to sleep fully clothed in the same bed? Now this is in the laws that we call harchakot, where we make all these laws that distance a nida from her husband during the time of nida days in order to prevent them from having intimacy. And I want to just point out, this is a very important daf because very, very few of the harchakot, there's all different laws about what things husband and wife shouldn't do together, and all different kind of things relating to food, things relating to the bedroom, things relating to all kinds of situations that might cause intimacy. Again, we're going to see this a lot, that the rabbis thought that mealtime was a time of intimacy that could create intimacy. And because of that, so what I want to point out is most of the harchakot that we see in the halacha are not from the Gemara at all. They're much later, from the time of the Geonim, like in the 800s. And most of them come from this Breita Denida, okay, and also many more developed in the Middle Ages, when the Christians had this sense of women being Nida, are like have the cooties, we have to stay away from them, and all these things developed much later about all these distances. However, this is, I think it's the one sugya, if I remember correctly, in the Gemara, maybe there's another one, but it's the main sugya that has any sort of issues relating to these things in the time of the Gemara. Okay, and you'll see that the conclusion is not so clear from the Gemara. So they want to know, can they sleep in the same bed if they're fully clothed? Now the assumption is, and I think we saw this before, that people slept generally without clothing on. Okay, so the issue here is that they're doing something different from the norm by sleeping with their clothing. Amar Rav Yosef, Tashma. So Rav Yosef says, let's learn from here. We're going to bring a number of different sources to try to get to an answer. Where do they go to? They go to Chulin, a Mishnah in Chulin that talks about basar b'chalav. Okay, not eating milk and meat. But in fact, we're going to start with not meat, but chicken. Chicken is a debate about whether chicken is like meat in terms of basar b'chalav. Certainly not on a Torah level. Okay, so now that they say, ha'of ole imagvina ala shulchan. Okay, you can put chicken and cheese on the same table, ve'eno ne'echal, but you can't eat them together. Divrei Beit Shammai. Beit Hillel omrim, lo ole v'lo ne'echal. It can't go up on your table together, and it can't be eaten. He's worried, put it on the table together, well, you might come to eat them together. So what do you see here? That we're not allowed to put this stuff together because, right, you can't, it sounds the same. Don't have the husband and wife in the bed together because maybe they'll end up having sexual relations. So they say, no, shane hatam deleka deot. This goes back to what we were talking about, the candle. If you have two people, then one will remind the other. In other words, something won't happen because there's two people here. When you're at the table and it's just you, you might forget and you might mix your chicken with your milk. So don't do it. But if you're in bed together, two people, once you have two people, they'll remind each other. It's unlikely that both of them will forget that she's a nida. Hachinami mistaber, they don't really relate here to, maybe one's desire will get the better of them and they'll do it anyway. It's more like maybe you'll forget. So hachinami mistabra dehecha deika deot shane, and here all the more so it makes sense that once you say there's two people, we're going to prove this idea right now from the following source. The Katane Seifa, the end of that Mishnah says, Rabban Shimon ben Gamliel omer, Shnei achsanim ochlim al shulchan echad. If you have two guests, they're sitting in a, this I imagine a cafeteria. Two people sitting in a cafeteria. Zeu chel basar v'zeu chel gvina. One's eating meat, one's eating cheese. They can do that. They can sit right next to each other and there's no concern. So what do you see here? As soon as there's two people, there's no concern because one will remind the other. But then the Gemara rejects it and says, no. You can't learn anything from that sort. Eating in a cafeteria is not the same scenario. And not only that, but lav itmar la, wasn't it said about the Mishnah? Amar Rav Chanim bar Ami Amar Shmuel lo shanu ela she'en mekirin zeh. That's only if they don't know each other. That's why I said a cafeteria. I sit down in a cafeteria. Somebody sits down next to me. I don't know him. There's no way we're going to eat from the same plate. I'm not going to go sharing that person's food. Aval, certainly not now. Aval mikirin zeh asurim. But if we know each other, then it's forbidden because then it's likely that we'll share food. V'hachinami mikirin zeh, and the husband and wife obviously know each other, and therefore, when mikirin zeh, there should be a concern. Okay, so therefore, that doesn't really help. So what do they say? Right, first they tried to say it's two people. Because it's two people, they'll remind each other, and therefore they can sleep in bed together. Now they say, no. There are people who are mikirin zeh, and therefore it's more likely that just like they'll share food, they might end up sleeping together. So now they say, no, wait, you're still comparing two things that aren't exactly the same. You can't compare the couple in bed to the people eating at the table. Hatam deot ika shinoi leka. There, and this is where we get the idea that if you're eating milk and meat at the same table with someone, you should put some sort of symbol on the table to remind you that there's a distinction between what I'm eating and what you're eating. So there, in the case where they were eating next to each other and they knew each other, there wasn't any change from the way they normally do things. But hacha, in this case, ika deot ika shinoi. Remember I told you they usually slept naked. So now that they're sleeping with clothing on, that already means that it's different. Ika de amre. Some people say that, okay, now this is going to be this, okay, so in this case, just to point out, this would seem to imply that they could sleep in the same bed fully clothed. Ika de amre, some people say that the way it went was a little bit different. We started with the beginning of the Mishnah about the chicken and then moved to the meat, and then with the distinctions, we made the following distinctions about whether it's more people and whether it's a shinoi, whether there's a change. Some people say that the way it worked was that first they brought the second part of the Mishnah. They didn't even bring the first part about the ofin fina. Tashma Rashba gomer shnei achsanim ochlim al shulchan echad ze basar v'ze gvina. Two guests can eat at the same table. He eating his meat, he eating his cheese. Ve'itmar alan. It was said on that Mishnah. Amar Rav Chanim bar Ami Amar Shmuel lo shanu ela she'en mekirin zeh zeh aval mekirin zeh zeh asur. And what's going on here? This is that what's happening is that instead of having, they brought it, then they rejected it, then they this, in this case, they brought it all. They said, here's the Mishnah, here's what they say about the Mishnah. They said about the Mishnah that it's only if they don't know each other. And then they say, and that's just like our case, where mikirin zeh zeh minu. But then, so that it's just one kind of approach. They say, okay, one step. They say, here's the Mishnah, here's what was said about the Mishnah. That seems to imply if they know each other, it's going to be forbidden. But then they say, no, because it's different. Hatam de'ot ika shinoi leika. Again, the conclusion is the same, it's just a matter of how they got there, where they now say, right, there's a difference between deot, and if you have deot and shinoi, you have two people, and you're doing something different than you normally do, then we're not concerned. Okay, so that was really the first proof. There were two versions of how we did the first proof, and that gets us to the conclusion that it's fine. But now they're going to bring another source, Tashma. And we're going to quote a pasuk from Yechezkel, El haharim lo achal ve'enav lo nasal glulei Beit Yisrael. This means he didn't worship idols. Ve'el eshet re'ehu lo timei. He didn't sleep with someone else's wife. Ve'el isha nida lo yikav. And he won't go near his wife when she's in nida. So what is the pasuk? What does the Gemara say about this? Makish isha nida le'eshet re'ehu. Notice what's together in the pasuk juxtaposed. Another woman and a woman who's in nida. So now they're going to say, Ma eshet re'ehu hu bibigdo v'hi bibigda asur. One would never say that a man can sleep with a married woman in a bed, fully clothed, if she's not his wife. Af ishto nida hu bibigdo v'hi bibigda asur. Therefore, a woman who's in nida with her husband is going to be the same, and therefore she can't sleep in the bed. Now, one could obviously start making lots of distinctions here, but the Gemara says that, and therefore shmamina. So with the first source, we concluded that it's okay to sleep in the same bed. If you go with this source, it would seem to imply she can't sleep in the same bed as her husband. Upliga de Rabbi Pitat. However, they say this disagrees with what Rabbi Pitat says. The Amar Rabbi Pitat, lo asra Torah ela kurva shel gilo ariyot bilvad. Only actual having sexual relations together is forbidden. Shenemar ish ish al kol she'er b'saro lo tikravu legalot erva. It says they can't come close in order to have sexual relations. So that means anything else is fine. So Rashi says here, but the last Rashi on the page, in the last second to last line, afilu kiruv basar midrabanan. In other words, bringing their bodies close together, right, touching, that would be only midrabanan, and therefore, again, this we keep having this, ein gozrim zera al zera, v'hi bebigda afilu midrabanan leika lemixar. So if she's fully dressed, then we don't have to worry about it. Okay, so again, we still end up with these different approaches. Ula. Now we're going to learn something about Ula. There's a bit of a strange source. When he would get home from his rabbi's house, he would kiss his sisters on their chests. Seems a little bit weird. Some people say that maybe makes a little more sense. He would kiss them on their hands. Okay, now you have to remember sisters, even though we say, oh, they're your relatives, but sisters, all the more so, your relatives are isur erva. It's forbidden for a man to sleep with his sister. So Ula basically made this distinction and said, no, my sisters, they're my relatives, nothing's going to happen. And therefore, he wasn't careful about touching them or kissing them. Again, depending on where, it seems a little weird if he really kissed them on their chest. I don't know exactly what to make of that. But now the Gemara says he seems to contradict himself. Any kind of getting close to a woman who's one of your arayot, someone you're forbidden to sleep with, is forbidden. Mishum lech lech amri nazir. There's a very famous line, and I think it's very relevant to what we're dealing with right now, which is they say to the nazir, a nazir can't eat grapes. Schor, schor, go around lekarma lo tikav. Don't walk through a vineyard, right? You're going to be tempted to pick some grapes, and that's forbidden. Go far away, right? Take the roundabout route so that you don't go into the vineyard. Why is it, right? This is just relevant to what we're dealing with nowadays. This is why we're all staying in our houses, right? Stay far away. Some people are, thinking, it's not such a big deal, but this is what we say. Make your boundaries, protect yourself so that you don't get into a complicated situation. So Ula said, basically, when it comes to arayot, sounds like keep far away. On the other hand, with his sisters, he wasn't very careful. Again, one could say he makes the distinction between family members, right? We know this to be that some people are less careful with arayot when it comes, with touching, kissing, with their family members. That would be seen here. Okay, now we get to a strange story. I find these stories interesting because they show us we get an eye into women in the times of the Talmud or in the times actually there's of the Mishnah, it's a Braita. And what their struggles were. Okay, we see there's often I call them the screaming women. Okay, sometimes they're silenced, and because of that, she actually isn't called screaming, but she's one of these people that if you read the story, you say, oh, this crazy lady, right? You can imagine this crazy woman. But you can really feel her pain. And if you think about the fact we're going to see, actually nobody was answering her. And it's very frustrating to be a woman who nobody's responding to and answering. And you're going to see her story is very sad. Unfortunately, when she does get answered, it's almost worse. And maybe we were better off if no one had actually answered her question. Tana de Eliyahu. So with that intro, we're going to get into our story. A brite is brought from the house of Eliyahu. Eliyahu, some people say, means Eliyahu Hanavi. And in fact, later, we're going to hear something in the name of Eliyahu, and maybe it's Eliyahu Hanavi, or maybe it's someone called Eliyahu. Maseh b'talmid echad. There was a case of a talmid, a student, a talmid chacham. Sheshina harbe v'kara harbe. He learned a lot. He read a lot. Right? Learned the mikra, meaning Torah. V'shimesh talmidei chachamim harbe. And he served the rabbis, the talmidei chachamim. Umeit b'chatzi yamav. And he died, young, very young. This is why you can imagine sounds a little crazy. She took his tefillin with her. She walks from shul to shul, from Beit Midrash to shul to Beit Midrash. And she says to everybody she sees, it says in the Torah, right? This is supposed to sustain you and give you long life. My husband did everything right. Why did he die young? Right? You can imagine she was distraught. Her husband died. She didn't know what to do. She was just feeling terrible. And the worst is, the lo haya adam machzira davar. Nobody answered her. I wonder what that means. Did they answer and say, sorry, we don't know? It means they just didn't give her an answer, or they just ignored her probably. And this poor woman was getting more frustrated that everyone was ignoring her. Now here comes in Eliyahu, okay? And likely we're talking about Eliyahu Hanavi, who always seems to appear at opportune moments. He happened to have been a guest in her house. She started with her mantra. She told the whole story again. And I started to ask her the following question. How did he treat you when you were in Nida? He was so distant from me, he wouldn't even touch my small finger. Okay, he was very careful not to be near me. What about, not the days that you're bleeding, but what about your 7 clean days? What was the situation then? How did he treat you then? So she says, then, he ate with me, he drank with me, and we slept. Now it sounds like Bikiruv basar, right? We slept naked in the same bed together. Now here, maybe she's starting to suspect that maybe this wasn't such a good thing. She says, but he didn't think that there was anything wrong with this. And here comes the real clincher, painful line, which is why I said in the beginning, maybe it would have been better if he actually didn't answer at all. Baruch hamakom shaharago. Blessed is God who killed this man. Shalom nasa panim leTorah. He didn't listen to what it said in the Torah. It says you can't go near a woman when she's in nida, meaning you can't sleep with her. And because of this, he was killed. Okay, that's very harsh, right? Nobody really says that you get death penalty for this. So how do we, what do we make of this? So first of all, Ki'ata Rav Dimi, the rabbis try to a little bit explain what he was thinking. So Rav Dimi, when he came from Israel and he heard the story, he said, Mitachad Havai. He said they were in one bed, okay, but Rashi says Richava was a wide bed, but lo kiruv basar have. It wasn't, when she said kiruv basar, it meant they were in the same bed, but she didn't mean that they were actually sleeping naked and they were actually fully dressed. Or another answer, B'marava Amrei, in Israel they said, Amar Yitzchak Bar Yosef, Sinar mafsik beino lebina. There was some sort of cloth between the two of them, some sort of apron, something that was separating them, and that's why he thought it was okay. But came Eliyahu and said that must be what he was punished for. Okay, this sounds very, very harsh story. This is one of the most famous Tosfots, I think, at least in my mind. Tosfot talks about, I don't know if you've ever heard this before, but there was a minhag, and it's very interesting. All in my Facebook feed yesterday and some groups, WhatsApp groups I'm part of, was this whole discussion going on about the mikvah and women going to the mikvah. And it was just interesting to me that the daf is all about mikvah and issues relating. And why is it so important? Because women who can't go to the mikvah right now, right, even though you finished your nida days, you finished your clean days, until you go to the mikvah, there's no difference at all. So the Gemara, the Rishonim were having trouble figuring out what was going on here. Why did he think that it could be somewhat different before she went to the mikvah? And Rabbeinu Tam says, and he quotes here, and this is very interesting. Rabbeinu Tam Peresh, Shahayu Regilim, he says, Hayu Regilim litbol shtei tfilot, echad l'sof shiva l'riyata, she to'ora midoraita, v'hach tfilah, echad l'sof yimei libun. In the time of Tosfot, there were women who went to the mikvah twice each time. They went to the mikvah once. Okay, now those who learn Nida know we're talking about those who didn't. We'll get there in another 7 years. But when we get to Nida, we're going to learn that women were in Nida for 7 days, including the days they were bleeding. And if they had Zava blood, which was not blood during the time of their Nida, then they would need 7 clean days. But nowadays, or even then, women were Machmir, maybe they're Zava, maybe they're Nida, and they always wait the 7 clean days. So, but Nida D'Oraita is only the first 7 days. So what they would do in the time of Tosfot is they would go to the mikveh after the first 7 days, and then that would get rid of the D'Oraita. Then, because they're only Safek Zavot, and they're not really Zavot, we're just concerned maybe they're Zava, the rest of the clean days, wherever they're up to, their clean days could have been already into their clean days, but once the first 7 days are over, at that point, they would, and therefore maybe that's what was going on here. She went to the mikveh in the middle, and then he treated her differently because then it was no longer needed D'Oraita. Okay, and then we could be more Mekel. This is a very strange shita to us, but in those days, that's what people did. Not everybody, but there were people. Soon after that, people came out against this minhag and said, you shouldn't do this, and it's a problem, and whatever else. But you should just know, it's a very famous shita that in the time of Tosfot, there were women who went to the mikvah twice a month. And it comes up here on this stuff. Okay, moving on to the next Mishnah. Okay, and these, okay, notice, and these, it starts with ve'ela, which is going to be the first question of the Gemara. And these are the halachas that were said in the attic of Hananya ben Chizkiah ben Garon, where they went to visit him. Okay, often they did a lot of meetings in the attic. I was thinking about it now, right? Everybody's working from their home. And the best place to work, if you think about it, is probably your attic or somewhere where it's not the center of the house. So if the rabbis were getting together, this is also out in the time of Yavne, when there was no more Sanhedrin anymore in the Beit HaMikdash. And I guess they needed a place where they could meet, and they would often meet in these attics of people. Okay, so where it was more quiet and out of the way. So these are of the halachot that were said in Hananya ben Chizkiah when they went up to his attic. Nimnu v'rabu Beit Shammai al Beit Hillel. There were more people from Beit Shammai that day than Beit Hillel. The Yud Chet Dvarim Gazru Bo Bayom. These are the famous 18 Gzerot that they determined on that day. Now, it's unclear how to read this Mishnah. It starts off with these are the halachot. Then it says Beit Shammai were more than Beit Hillel, and therefore they determined all sorts of halachot based on that. And it says there were 18 Gzerot that they instituted. The question is this all the same thing? Are these different things? In Safrai's book, he raises a lot of different possibilities. And from the Yerushalmi, it sounds like there were actually 3 different things going on. There were 18 halachot where there was a debate, Beit Shammai, Beit Hillel, or maybe there wasn't a debate about them at all. And maybe those are related, ve'elu, those relate to the things we discussed in the previous Mishnah. There's another 18 halachot that Beit Shammai, we ruled by Beit Shammai against Beit Hillel. And then there are these 18 gzerot, which is something else entirely. Okay, and not necessarily these gzerot were instituted by Beit Shammai. Some people say, no. The 18 gzerot are the things that were instituted because Beit Shammai were greater than Beit Hillel. I'm not going to get into all the details, but there's a lot of lack of clarity about this, and we never actually get a list of what these 18 things were. Okay, so it's also really not so clear. We're going to start counting. We'll get to 10 of them today that are mentioned in some Mishnah, but it's not so clear what these 18 things are, but that's what we're going to be dealing with for the next few pages. A lot of them have to do with purity and impurity. Okay, so let's start. Amalei Abaye Rav Yosef. Elutnan or ve'elutnan? Is it these are, meaning the things we're about to mention in the upcoming Mishnayot, or is it ve'elu relating to the previous Mishnayot? So do we say, so elutnan or ve'elutnan? Ve'elutnan, if we say ve'elutnan, then we say hani damaran. It means the previous ones that, don't read by the candlelight, lest you might do this. Don't do this just in case. Oh, elutnan dib'ina lamemar kaman, or is it referring to the upcoming things? So they say Tashma. Let's learn from the following source. Ein polin le'or haner ve'ein korin le'or haner. We actually quoted that line before, right? Remember, it's the whole question was, does the polin have to do with the candlelight? So ein polin le'or haner ve'ein korin le'or haner ve'elu min halachot shamru b'aliyat Hanani ben Chizkiah ben Garon shma mina ve'elu tnan shma mina. From that source, it's very clear that the things from the previous Mishnah were said in the Aliyah, and therefore it must be ve'elu, which means we're going back to the previous section. And that's why what Safrait claims about where ve'elu goes back, but that's talking about the halachot. There's halachot, where they made decisions about certain things, and then there's gezerot. Gezerot and halachot are different. Halachot are what's the halacha. Gezerah is, well, we're going to institute something just in case. The problem is that the previous Mishnah are also gezerot. So the whole thing, I'm just pointing out, there's lack of clarity here exactly how many things we're talking about. Are there different categories or aren't there? We'll have to live with the lack of clarity. Now, once they mention Hananiah ben Chizkiah, they're going to say some other things about Hananiah ben Chizkiah, some interesting things about him. Two different sources that talk about things he did. Mi katav Megillat Ta'anit. Megillat Ta'anit was a book that they put together, a list of all the days where the Jews were saved from something. Okay, this is like there's certain shuls where they never say Tachanun because there's always it's some Rebbe's something or some I don't know what. So that's what this book was basically. It was a list of all these days that something happened, right? There's right the day the Lubavitcher Rebbe got out of jail or something and people don't say Tachanun, there's all these things where events happened and they said these are days that we should celebrate, right? So maybe not say Tachanun, you can't fast, you can't do eulogies, things like that. So that's called Megillat Ta'anit, okay? Because it's funny. You would think Megillat Ta'anit would be a list of Ta'aniyot, but it's a list of when you can't do a Ta'anit. So who wrote Megillat Ta'anit? Amru Hananiah ben Chizkiah v'siyato shayu mechavivim et hatzarot. Right? What does that mean? They loved tzarot. They don't really love tzarot. They love being saved from tzarot. Right? I can't help but think to connect this to what we're going through. Right? The day that we all get out of this situation with the coronavirus and we can all walk around the streets freely. Right? That will be a day to remember. So that would be a day that they would have put on their list. Amar Rashbag, Rabbi Shimon Gamliel didn't agree with this whole approach. He says, I also think it's great when God saves us, but it's going to be every day, right? And once you do everything every day, it no longer has significance. You're gonna dilute the whole significance of it by having every few days, there's a holiday. That doesn't make any sense. He says, can't do this. Davar acher, another explanation why you shouldn't do it. Ein shoteh nifga. A shoteh doesn't really understand, someone who doesn't really understand what it means to be b'tzara. And therefore, being saved from tzara doesn't mean so much to him. In other words, the average person doesn't really understand how bad the situation is. And therefore, we shouldn't be making a holiday because he doesn't even appreciate how great it was that we were saved. Tavar acher, another way of saying this is ein basar hamet margish b'iznin. If you take a knife and you cut into the flesh of a dead person, he's not going to feel anything. So therefore, like that, it's like when we're saved from something, we don't even feel it. We don't even notice that we're being punished on a daily basis. We're not living in that kind of reality where we realize how much trouble we're actually in. Right? This is also interesting nowadays, right? Some people are taking this very seriously and some people aren't taking it seriously at all. And you see, right, it's a matter of how much do you view the tzara. And therefore, being saved from it, well, if you didn't appreciate what it was and you didn't really feel the pain of it, then you shouldn't really be celebrating the celebration aspect. So now the Gemara wants to question this last line. Is that really true? The worms that crawl around in the dead body are like a needle in the flesh of a live person, meaning the dead person feels the worms in the skin of the dead person, which is a little bit strange. I don't know exactly what to make of this and what they mean by this, because we know the dead person doesn't feel. Okay, this is a pasuk from Eov where Eov is saying, even the dead people feel the pain. So Amos, so what they want to say is, Ein basar hamet shebachayim margish b'izmel. They weren't talking about dead people. They were talking about dead skin, dead flesh. If you have a part of your body that became dead, right? We sometimes have dead skin and you can rub it or, scratch it and you won't feel anything. That's what it means. It means you could have some dead flesh, you won't feel anything. That's what it's like to have something happened to you and you don't even really realize how bad it was. Amar Rav Yehuda. So that's one thing about Hananiah ben Chizkiah. You should know he instituted Megillat Ta'anit. He wrote it down. Amar Rav Yehuda Amarav. Biram Zechor Torah Ish L'Tov. This person is also mentioned for good for another reason, right? Or there is a person who's mentioned for good. Who is it? Hananiah ben Chizkiah Shmo. That's who it is. She'ilmalehu nigna Sefer Yechezkel. If it weren't for him, Sefer Yechezkel would have gone to the Geniza. It would have been taken out of the canonization of the Torah. Shahayud Barav Sotrin Divrei Torah. There were some cases in Yechezkel where Psukim in Yechezkel contradicted the Torah. Okay, I'll give you 2 examples. One is it talks about on the 7th day of Nisan, we should bring a part to the Beit HaMikdash for a korban. And that doesn't appear anywhere in the Torah. Another is it says the Kohanim should not eat nevelot. Okay, why shouldn't a Kohen eat a nevela? No one can eat nevela. Nevela is an animal that dies without being shechted. So why did he say Kohanim? It almost sounds like nobody can. So what happened? Ma'asa, how did Hananiah save the day? He'elulo, 300 garbei shemen, v'yashav ba'aliyah v'darshan. Again, he goes up to the aliyah. The attic must have been a really nice attic. He goes up to the aliyah. They bring him 300 amounts of oil so that he can have enough light and also maybe for food. Not that you eat oil, but I guess, I don't know, to eat with his food. And he sat there until he figured out how to resolve all the contradictions. And he basically saved the book of Yechezkel. Okay, so for those reasons, he's mentioned for good. Now we're going to talk about the Shmona Asar Davar Gazru. Okay, we're going to have a list of 10. Minding, we're not going to understand them all yet. The Gemara is going to go into them as we go on. The first thing you have to know are basic laws of Tum and Tara. We talked about them before. I'll review them again. And if you don't get them perfectly, don't worry. We're going to keep seeing them over and over. Eventually, you'll get them. So there's what we call an avatuma, like a creepy crawler, one of the shratzim, or a zav, or all those categories of avatuma. An avatuma can come in contact with a person or a kli, and that will become tameh. Okay, it carries impurities, or food and drink. That will become a rishon. A rishon can be metameh a sheni, but a sheni, okay, let's say you have a person or a utensil or food that became tameh as a rishon. It can now only make food and drink impure. It can't impurify anything. It can't cause a person to be impure. A person will never be a sheni. A sheni is usually the end game, unless you're dealing with truma or people who treated things like truma. Then that food, if it comes in contact with another food, it will make that food, if that food is truma that it came in contact with, that food will be called a shlishi. And usually it says this is metameh. In this case, it always says it's posel, because that's the end game. So it basically disqualifies the truma, and that's the end. When it comes to sacrificial meat, it can even go to a revi. So food that's a shlishi that comes in contact with food that's a revi can turn it into also, could be posel kodashim as a revi. So a revi, truma and kodshim can both be a shlishi, and only kodshim, sacrificial meat, can become a revi. We're going to focus on truma right now. Elu poslinet ha-truma. The following things on a rabbinic level, because it's a gzeirah, disqualify truma. So normally what disqualifies truma is a regular rishon or sheni, or a person, or an av, a rishon, a sheni, who come in contact with truma, disqualifies the truma. What happens to truma when it gets disqualified? It has to be burned. Only if it's d'oraita, though. In these cases, it's only going to be midrabanan. We wouldn't burn it, but you can't eat it. So, ha'ochel ochel rishon. If you're eating food that's a rishon, while you're eating it, and you come in contact with truma is pasul, is disqualified. Ha'ochel ochel sheni. While you're eating ochel sheni, you're eating something that's sheni l'truma, then you're posel the truma. In other words, even if the food doesn't come in contact directly with the truma, but while you're eating it, you're posel the truma. Hashotem mashkin tmeim. If you're drinking any liquids that are tameh, also same thing. Haba rosho v'rubo b'mayim she'uvim. If you're impure, okay, this is the whole thing yesterday, was the question was, can someone go to the mikveh in a bathtub? Okay, why is a bathtub you can't use as a mikveh? Because it's mayim she'uvim. It's water that was collected, right? It's not water, it has to be rainwater. It can't be water that comes out of a tap or something like that, or comes out of a well. So mayim she'uvim, if you bring your body and most of your body in mayim she'uvim while you're impure, you're still impure, and you can't then, if you come in contact with truma, you're going to be pasul. Tahor shenaflu rosho v'rubo shlosha lugim mayim she'uvim. We're going to have to wait till the Gemara to understand this. If you're pure and they pour on your head, on most of your body and your head, 3 log of water that was collected water, not water that's mikvah water, that's a problem. You're going to become tameh, which is weird. And you're tameh to the extent that if you touch truma, just because water fell on you, that seems weird. We'll have to explain. HaSefer, kitvei kodesh, like sifrei kodesh. HaYadayim, your hands. If your hands touch, that's why we do netilat yadayim now, because their hands, we assume, touch lots of things. Therefore, hands become tameh, even if your body's not tameh. Tvul yom, if you went to the mikveh in the morning and you were waiting for the sun to set, because you're only become fully pure when the sun sets, so you're considered full yom. You can disqualify truma, miturabanan. Va'ochlin, va'hakelim, the last 2, these are considered 2, the food or utensils, shenitmeu b'mashkin. Okay, we talked about this before a while ago, that liquids have the status, even if they're a sheni, they become a status of a rishon. And they did this because the liquids of a zav become the very high level of tuma. And because of that, like liquids that come out of the body of a zav, because of that, they were gozer on any liquids, that liquids have a higher status. So if liquids are a sheni, they become a rishon. Okay, and then they're mitame. So they can also disqualify truma, any kind of liquids. Or food or drink that were mitame by liquids, then become a sheni, and they can also disqualify the truma. Okay, we're going to stop here for today. We'll pick up tomorrow and try to start understanding. We're going to have a few days of truma and tara, so prepare yourselves. So just to remind people who are listening now, the shiur is available on Zoom. You can find it on the website. You can see it, be able to see it on a daily basis on the website. The video will be up about half hour after I give the class. You don't need Zoom to watch. You can just watch on it's just a YouTube video. And the podcast is still going as usual. So join us tomorrow for Shabbat Yudalit.